Okay. The very beginning is a very interesting question. I think the concept of branding is still largely misunderstood from a Nigerian point of view. Yeah, a lot of people call different things branding. That on its own makes it even the more confusing. You know, if typically before I answer this, I usually like to get the people in the audience their idea of branding or their definition of branding. Well, okay. Yeah, but that might not apply here. So I will just give my own answers. Like over time, the longer I have practiced this, in actual business, the more my definition has evolved, right? So these are no textbook definitions, but these definitions are from my experience and from my understanding. So simply put, yeah. Okay, let me first define what brand is, right? Before defining branding, right? So brand or branding is the collection of perception that exists in your customer's mind. Yeah, is all the perception that just exists in customer's mind when your brand or when the name of your brand comes up. So with that, you see that brand or your brand is not what you call yourself. It's not what you call it. It's what people call it, right? It usually starts out as an aspirational journey. Imagine for a new startup, going into a new business, you all fired up. Okay, this is what it at first is your aspiration rather, but largely the reality of your brand is what people call it, not just what you call it. So it's largely about perception, but branding is the entire process that you go through to achieve being a brand. Exactly, to achieve that. Now it's the entire process, that you go through. Ultimately, what makes a brand is that you have a brand identity. It's actually that identity that people call your brand. But that identity is the identity is not your fantasy, right? The identity is not just what you call yourself, but how people perceive you. But of course, you start out with this is how I want to be perceived. In fact, that's the whole idea of branding. Now, what makes an identity? Well, a lot of times, like I said, we misunderstand these things. Of course, in an identity, you have visual elements, you have brand elements, logo, colors, fonts, all of those things. But those things are just an element of your branding. They are not really your brand. They are an element of your branding. So, to say, for instance, a brand identity means that you've got a value proposition. Then there's a personality that carries the value proposition. These two things together is what makes a brand identity. So you see that. Okay, go on.
The brand identity is the value proposition.
Yes, the brand. Go on.
And the personality. Okay.
Yes.
So identity plus identity is equal to personality and value proposition.
Yes, just like math, identity, value proposition. Identity is value proposition plus personality equal brand identity. Equal identity.
Okay.
So, like I said, that your brand is the perception, the overall perception. If you have 20 customers, their collective perception of you, that's actually what truly mirrors your brand. Of course, you starting out could start aspirationally, or you have how you want to be perceived. Now let's look at branding like a person. A person, you as a person, you have a personality, but your personality is not all that there is to you. You know, for instance, imagine that there are several people that answer your name. You people might even look alike, maybe physical structure, you know, but you see that things like your personality start becoming intrinsic. Those are the things that separate you. But that wouldn't just be enough, right? Your character is your main base. Your character is your main base. And you might want to copy someone's personality, but you can't really copy someone's character. So value proposition is like your character, right? Then personality is all the aura that goes around it. That's it with personality. You know, first, what value? Let's say I want to go into food business, right? Branding is not packaging. Like a lot of people misunderstand it. Because you can package beautiful nonsense. Imagine a food that looks so nice and a restaurant. Sorry, I hope that came out well. Imagine food looking so delicious and a restaurant. You enter the restaurant, everything is just nice and sweet. Finally, you get to the main cocoa. You eat the food. You see that at the end of the day, it starts purging you. Or you're trying to understand, is it that is too much, or is it salt that is too much? So you see that as beautiful as it is, the person lives there and is not happy with you, right? So my point is, why I'm emphasizing on this is, like I said, it's a concept we haven't quite understood. So we could join into a bandwagon impression. You know, this is my business, so I've seen a lot of people misinterpret it. But when you see the ones that understand it, more than anything else, it starts with a very strategic work, right? And
so the beginning for branding is strategic work. Okay.
Yes, because to define your value proposition, it's a very strategic. Yes, it's something that requires a lot of thinking and a lot of processing. You know, now the instance I gave with the food business, that means you need to understand all the dynamics of food business. Now, starting out, you might not understand it all at once, you know, but it is important that you're keeping tabs. Like I said, the measuring scale is to see that I want to be perceived as so and so, right? 6 months down the line, how am I being perceived? When you check customer feedback, not just them telling you what you want to hear. Feedbacks are real for the one that is sincere and wants to be discerning. So it's easy to see, okay, we're way different from what we think we are and what people think that we are. Which is why I always say that brand is like a person, right? Once you meet people, by default, you have a perception of them. So someone is going for a function, depending on the kind of function, you want to dress in a certain way. What are you trying to do? You're trying to influence people's perception of you. You know, if it is a professional setting, you try to put on your professional fonts. If it is a chill setting, you know, all that kind of thing. You know, you wouldn't want to go to a beach party wearing a tuxedo. My point is, these are the efforts you make to guide people's perception. You might not be able to control it entirely, you know, but you can guide it. So there is no big brand that you know, whether it's food, whether it's fashion, you know, there's no brand that you know that just happened by accident. It was deliberate from day one. Some of the way people feel about them, it's as real as the concept of branding is as real as the human person. You can't fake for too long. You'll be found out, right? Another definition of branding is that branding is a promise made. But this promise is a promise made, but this promise is fed by the imagination. And it's
fed by the imagination.
Yes. Let's paint again another scenario, right?
Please.
You're into we've had a talk before. Let me go back to this illustration again. I said imagine someone in cake business, right? And the whole packaging is looking nice. In fact, you even have an outlet looking all beautiful. Even your name, for instance, what you're doing now, Nkali, a lot of people don't know the meaning of the name. The name on its own makes an impression. So the name on its own, that's why I said fed by the imagination. The imagination is beginning to assume a promise. You might have gotten a very wonderful design, good visuals and all of that. That on its own is even making a stronger promise. But now, this promise will border down on values. The imagination is beginning to assume, by the time I walk into this, just by looking at the logo, there's no way this cake is not going to be like this, like this. For instance, I and my friend went to a bakery recently. There's a particular bread we've always bought there. Then we saw just their design elements, interior. We just saw one nice looking chocolate bread. Picture has gotten our attention. We now said, sorry, please, is this bread available? Can we have it? They said, no. We're like, hey, why now? They said, because of the whole lockdown, that it will spoil one. So a few days later, I was talking with the same friend that we went there. I was like, man, bro, I'm not convinced that bread is there. So I'm not convinced that bread is there. If that bread was there, they would have given it to us. But now, this is the promise that our imagination has made. Do you get nice looking bread design? I imagine that it's going to be there. So now, this promise and this imagination is going to be watered by experience. Eventually, when I patronize the food, when I patronize your clothing brand, when I patronize your service brand, when I patronize your product brand, in other words, I'm now interacting with the brand. So that's the experience. What experience do you leave me with? Is it experiential? What experience do you leave me with? Then this experience is going to live or die by the tongue, because eventually people are going to talk about it. Oh, I went there, it was so and so. So eventually, living or die by the tongue will be that is either that is in alignment with the assumption of promise, or is not in alignment, because people will talk about their experiences.
Wow. Okay, see, let me tell you what you told me. What you said to me was that it starts with packaging and a presentation and the way people first of all see you. Then from there, it goes to the imagination that a person would have of you and what your value proposition is based on what they saw originally. Then from the imagination, they would have an experience of you.
Yeah.
And based on the experience of you, if you meet them and it feels like you fulfill the promise they saw in the first place, word of mouth follows, and word of mouth will either confirm what you try to convince people is true, or make people have their own, tell you. That's basically what you said to so far.
Yeah. That's to say that one way or the other, just like every person is a person, one way or the other, in a sense, everything is a brand, because it feels like every business is making a promise. So every step that you take to the customer perceiving you, interfacing with you, is going to assume a promise. Really, known or unknown to you, there's something that you're promising, because human beings would always have imagination. Sure, just by the way you look, whether you're intentional or not, just by the sound of your name, people will make assumptions of your personality. Eventually, after, hey, meet so and so, let's say it's a networking event, for another 10 minutes, they interact with you. They've experienced you, right? And they will leave and they will talk about their experience with you. So if it is good, it's going to live by the tongue. If it is bad, it's going to die by the tongue.
When does advertising come in?
Okay. I'm thinking with this, you're asking what is the difference with advertising and branding, right?
Thank you.
Very well. I like that question, because it took me several years to define that difference myself. When I got into branding, I knew this thing wasn't like I knew it was different from advertising. And I've had conversations with people that will be like, no, we're all doing the same thing. I'm like, no, we're not doing the same thing. Branding is very different from advertising. but I couldn't quite articulate the difference. Just recently, I've been able to. And I think the difference, the distinction is that advertising is transactional, while branding is transformational.
Okay.
I'll break that down.
But before you break it down, please say it again. I just want to hear that again.
Okay. It's not really my rhyme.
I was looking forward to this session, right? I was looking forward to this session. Please say that again.
Right. I said advertising is transactional, but branding is transformational. That is true branding, not packaging. True branding is transformational. See, branding has a soul. Like I said, branding is like a person. When you meet someone that has a soul, you would know, right? Advertising is transactional in the sense that you can tell a story, you can put a lot of different things together. You're just aiming at sales, right? But branding is beyond transaction, it's transformational. Before we finish this whole conversation, on your own, you would even understand more what I'm saying about this. The more you understand the whole idea of branding, you understand why I said it's transformational, while advertising is transactional. And why this difference is important to understand there, particularly in the times that we live in, right? Human beings are not just creatures that are concerned with transactions. That's where we miss it a lot. And that's why I haven't seen a business might be big. Size is not what makes a brand. Brand is not about size. A business might be big, and maybe in my perspective hasn't quite acquired brand status, right? At large, the biggest thing that a brand can achieve is equity. Equity is intangible and yet very tangible. Equity is like goodwill. You might not see it in your balance sheet, and yet it can be the most expensive asset that you ever have. Yes. For instance, I always tell people, what makes Coca-Cola? Is it Coca-Cola the fizzy drink? Is it Coke the drink or Coke the brand? Check very well. What makes Coca-Cola what it is not Coke the drink, it's Coke the brand. It's the brand that makes it what it is, not just the drink. You and I cannot prove that it's the best tasting cola. In fact, a few years ago, some people have actually done a test, and I mean, it didn't come out to be maybe for every ramification of food and nutrition. I don't know what was the parameters, but it didn't come out to qualify as the best. Based on the parameters they used, the one that came out to qualify as the best, a lot of us haven't even ever heard about it. Coke is the most popular brand in the world. Imagine, do you get? It's the most popular brand in the world. So, like, my point is, human beings are not just creatures that are concerned with transactions. Human beings are creatures of meaning. So, when we're patronizing brands, unknown to us, it is meaning that we're seeking. See, with every act of purchase or with every brand that we want to associate with, that's why there are things like brand association. It is expression that we're seeking. It is meaning. We're looking for things that resonate with our values. That's why there are products that you're not just connected with them. For instance, when we talk about value proposition, to say that you have a strong value proposition means that that proposition is delivering functional and emotional value. That's what makes a good value proposition. It must deliver functional value. It must deliver emotional value. You must find the
A value proposition is powerful when it delivers both functional and emotional.
Because you're dealing with human beings. Human beings are functional and emotional at the same time. So we're not just that's why you see the top brands. They make a lot of investments. They make massive investments in their branding. Why? Business will come and go, but brand will live longer than a lifetime. Yeah.
Okay. Wait. What can I do now? Like, because I've noticed that they are talented artists, talented designers, and people that do all sorts of amazing things. Like, but are there any Nigerian brands that thrill you, that you feel have done a solid job in branding, in the fashion industry, in whatever industry, right? That have done a solid job in branding, that you feel, because this is my personal sentiment. I'm thinking about brands that would exist cross-generational. Is branding necessary to take a brand? Is branding necessary to take a business across generations? And has any African or Nigerian brand in particular, thrilled you?
Well, I wouldn't want to call names because some I'm still observing with a double lens. Have there been the ones that thrilled me? Yes, they've thrilled me. But to be honest, there are two that have gotten my attention in the fashion industry. One, I could tell that it was very deliberate. You know that one. You and I have visited them. I don't just want to call names. Right? Yes. I don't want to call names. I was
now. If it's a positive thing, call the name. If it's negative, we can keep it as a rule. Or like they're in VI, right?
They're in VI, yes.
They have a lovely wooden building.
Yes.
Okay, so the audience can feel the blank spaces at this point in time. So
exactly.
Okay, carry on.
you remember that day? I kept on raving that this is a pure brand that can match any international standard.
Yeah.
By now, if you observe from the interior, from the staff conduct to the pieces that were on display, the whole environment, everything was cohesive. Everything was pointing to the same thing. You might not be able to say this is what it is, but you could tell that everything is in unison. Everything. There wasn't disparity, right? And remember, the thing about brand identity is that your brand identity must be able to differentiate you. The whole idea is that you're seeking to differentiate yourself by your values, by your personalities, right? So branding again is about the little decisions you make every day. The little everyday decisions that you make. Whether it's a choice of
whether it's a choice of
I was going to say the everyday, because branding is a very holistic thing, right? And whether you're the business owner or whether it's members of staff, Now, for instance, does the workforce understand? Is there a deliberate culture in the workplace? Like the value proposition and the personality that carries it, is there a culture that supports it? Now, right, this would influence in the way that you train your staffs. Okay, let me give you an example. Sometime last year or sometime last year, I wanted to start a cleaning company, but I wanted it to be a brand. I had a little money saved up, but you know what discouraged me at the time? I'm like, okay, I'm not yet there. Let me not rush the thing because of the approach I wanted to make, right? I penned certain things on paper and I didn't want to compromise that approach and that decision. One of the things I thought is that, for instance, I might not be the one cleaning as much as I would want to be involved. I'm going to have people working with me that are going to be cleaning. For me, what my brand was going to promise I thought to myself, if I can't clean your house better than you would clean, then why pay me? Why give me? So there has to be very little things that I would do that you won't be willing to do every day. You might know how to do it, but it will wear you out to do it every day. Right? Then I thought about, okay, imagine on a typical Saturday where maybe newly married couple or maybe couple with kids, little kids, where our service delivery can relieve them of every house chore once in a while. It might not be every time, from washing their car to doing their laundry to thoroughly, deep cleaning the house. There's a kind of cleaning that, have you ever seen a bathroom so clean that for another 1 week or 2 weeks, you don't need to clean it? It's just having an impact. But that wasn't just enough. I thought to myself that, look, the people that are going to deliver this thing, I don't think I can have them ready in 3 weeks. I felt like it would be nice if I can have resources, because realistically, from a business point of view, I can't hire someone doing cleaning that will be paying 100,000, right? So imagine I'm going to hire someone that I might be paying 30,000. What's going to be the average mindset where this person is, just as a person generally? I figured this person is going to need some orientation, because more than anything else, I wanted to have culture. I wanted to have a work culture. Like I wanted to transmit my idea of this thing, because it's coming from within me. I want us all to think alike. So I felt if I have the resources, I would rather take this person away from the environment if it means 2 months of orientation. It's going to be so comprehensive.
Serious brand, serious cultural development.
Exactly, serious cultural orientation, cultural development. Why? Because again, like I said, human beings are not just creatures that are concerned with transaction. They are seeking meaning. And once people come in contact with that, we have a soul. We relate from one soul to another. Once people come in contact with that, they might not be able to say it. They will not only patronize, they will be loyal and they would advocate for the brand. Now, in this part of the world, we're still even trying to get on the branding that was practiced maybe some 20, 30, 50 years ago. And in more developed cultures, they are already moving into this dimension that I'm talking about. For instance, their businesses, that their value proposition is no longer cheapest, fastest, the best. They've gone past those things. For instance, you see, we've seen instances where I know of a brand that was going to go under, and people even contributed for them, because there's something that they represent for them in terms of community. So to them, it's not just a business or service. There's something, there's a connection.
While you were speaking now, I was going to ask a question like, okay, just highlight the importance of branding, right? And taking the steps to develop a brand. And you already said, so people patronize you, and then you have advocates for your brand. So like, you don't even need to get further than that, because you will need to keep advertising, but if you have a solid brand, the brand will speak for itself. The brand is his advertiser.
Yeah, thank you very much for highlighting that. You see why I said it's not what you call yourself, it's what people call you. Yeah.
Okay, so does branding have to be expensive? Because, like, for example, now for a digital business now, right? People that might have a laundry service that people are starting to know in the area, that they never spoil your clothes. They have different methods, dry cleaning and washing, even chemical cleaning and stuff. Like, they have a good reputation. How do they take that to the online space at March? Number one. And number two, does it have to be an expensive process?
It doesn't have to be expensive, right? But for proper context, it's a yes or no answer. Now, depending on the project scale or what the business case is, there are certain ventures, if you want to undertake, inevitably it would be expensive. But let's assume someone that is just starting up. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be. It starts with consciousness. you don't need money for consciousness.
Sure.
That's why I said it's not. Yeah, that's why I said it's not size.
You don't need money for consciousness.
You don't need money for consciousness. At least first thing. That's why I said it. Let me give you an example. One of the difference, like in the course of doing branding workshops in the UK, there was something I noticed in that mixed audience. Between us and the maybe let's say in England where it was held. Yeah, I noticed that. I always say this. I noticed that the difference is that if Oyibo man says this is my value proposition, they're actually saying what they mean. You get they are not trying to sound good. It's not in a generic sense, but largely what I've observed. Some might say, look, I'm in business to for instance, imagine a McDonald's that one of their proposition is speed. Now, to deliver the proposition of speed was one of their values, speed of delivery. It has to come out fresh and it must not exceed a certain amount of time. To do that required massive effort and investment. To do that meant that from architectural phase, the whole restaurant layout is designed in a way that it will aid that delivery. So you see why I said that they are essential with the value propositions that they identify. I don't know if you've ever heard of innocent juice. I think it was back then when I was in school. Very simple branding proposition. Like juice so innocent, like not with all the additives. And the way they went about it, it grew very organically. They started with things that didn't need money. As simple as squeezing out fresh juices, getting people to test them for free, getting people's feedback. It was from collective feedback that they defined their brand. So everything they are doing is true to them. It's not that, submit your profile,
So basic. So basic.
So basic. That's it, the approach I wanted to take today, for us to understand it, not from a book point of view, from a real life point of view. Very basic. Very basic. So that's why that it doesn't have to be expensive, right? For instance, while it doesn't have to be expensive, it has to be, and that's it has to be effective, creative, cohesive, and consistent. Do you get?
Please slowly. It has to be
effective.
Effective.
Yes. It has to be creative.
Effective, creative.
It has to be cohesive. In other words, across touch points between your business card and your website, and even the way you answer customers on phone, I need to see the personality. I need to see the value. I need to see the culture. Whether it's from your nylon, do you get? So yeah, and it has to be consistent. Now, when these things are in place, it's a journey. It's not a marathon. Just take it one step at a time. You will eventually get there.
Wow. Okay, so do you have any lessons you can share with us, and anything you've noticed that small businesses that want to go into digital space as well can do today? Like, just tell us 10 things or something that we can do today that will just cement us in our customers' mind in a certain way.
Okay, number one, for instance, whether your business or your brand is offline or online, the basic principles are the same, right? But more emphasis on the digital space. I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, the thing about digital space is that it's so fast, so exciting, and at the same time so unforgiving. So unforgiving. So because it never loses memory. It never loses memory. before you know it, it's even gone viral. So it tells me that where a lot of young businesses miss it is that they are too much in a hurry to be seen and to be heard. But take the time to do your homework. That's why I said earlier that it starts from strategy. The visual element, the creative element is very exciting. So it's easy. You have a friend that can maybe design a very flamboyant or sweet-looking logo. It's very easy to get on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. But it is better. See, the difference is that whatever you're doing, you're now doing it in online space, in a digital space. Do you get? But your value is your value, whether it's offline or it's online. I was selling food at Surulere, but I now want to have an online presence. The basic still remains that I need to work out the whole art of making food, for what food should deliver basically. Then I need to work out my logistics. I've gone online. You're saying, okay, bring it. Someone have told me about it. Before the soup got there, it has soured. Is it not better that I took my time to just get it, just have all of these things sorted? So first things first is that, have you got a value proposition that is worth taking online, that is worth taking to the digital space? So do your homework well first. First things first, count one, eventually, so that when you arrive there, remember I said that branding is a promise. So that when you arrive there, you will be delivering your promise. So do your homework well. Ensure that you practicalize the core of your business idea first. Get that right. If you, for instance, if you want to, now a lot of people would also jump on a sponsored ad. I'm not emphasizing those ones because it's a very known thing. Anybody could Google and find it, or it's just the norm. So it's easy to get on that. I don't know who doesn't know how to create a Facebook account. So it's not all of those. Part of doing your homework is understanding who you are as a brand. So that I said digital space is exciting. So that not that I now see that, this person is doing it this way, this person is doing it this way. So today I'm like this person, tomorrow I'm like this person. No, it's better that you understand yourself, and it will never be perfect in the beginning. That's why I said it's an aspirational journey. But it's something that you keep working on. It's something that you keep reviewing. For instance, one of the things I always tell people, I call it one core concept. For instance, let's say I have a little budget. You would always have limited resources as a startup business. Even big businesses, nobody ever has enough resources, right? But the smart thing to do is, I need to know that I have limited resources, and let's say maybe I could try 3 channels or 3 online strategies, right? As against putting all the money in one. I could try 4 or 5, just little experiment first, and see the one that really supports my business. So when I now see, okay, this one is giving me more of the expected outcome, then I can now invest more money in it. But to be able to function well in the digital space, again, is across platform, even if it is online. One of the most critical things is that you have to have a good understanding of your target audience. You cannot be everything to everybody. First, you clearly, creating your identity and understanding your audience is something that go hand in hand. So this takes a lot of research work. That's why I said it starts with strategy. For instance, you need to have a good dose of understanding of even your competitors. Your audience also include your competitors. Because why? All you're looking for is point of difference. Because every human being is always searching for, the only reason that will make someone, leave this, who they are patronizing, to want to patronize something else, one way or the other, there has to be something that you're offering differently. And let's not always make the mistake to think that price is not the only value proposition. In fact, someone said that price becomes important in the absence of value or quality. you check the reality of life. If you can deliver good value, someone would always be happy to pay the price. So there are things that by their nature might not be cheap. Do you get? But so long as someone gets value when they when they have dealings with you, of course, they won't only come back, but they'll tell someone else about it. And again, it's in the very little things. For instance, something went wrong. You're a human being. You would get it wrong. You were bound to make mistakes, right? But do you become a spin master? Do you just shy away in your own self-interest, or with an empathic heart, would you put yourself in the person's shoes and like, really and truly, this wasn't well done? You know, I said to myself sometime that I need to, myself and my team, we need to get to a place where we don't just say sorry, where we train ourselves to take some responsibility, right? If it is not, if it means that, okay, maybe if it is something that we can redo, or maybe something that we can compensate, but it's one human being to another. Do you get? You just have to be sensitive to someone else. That's why I said it is better to build brands and not just businesses. Businesses in their nature are just transactional. We hear things like, no hard feelings, it's just business. It's not true, it's not just business. It is business for human beings, and human beings are not transactional. They are very meaningful. Meaning is that I remember that, I paid for this, I saw your services on Instagram, you promised this, and that's not what you delivered.
So the last question I was about to ask you was what you kind of answered, which is what are the practical steps people can take, right? So you mentioned you create an identity using research, right?
Yes.
Then
yes.
Do that in tandem with understanding your audience, because you can create the identity that your audience will relate to it when you've done some research on them. Then after that, you should test different methods of satisfying and reaching our audience, because funds are limited for SMEs, small businesses and startups. You test different networks, then the ones that give you the good results you desire, you use that, and then you put money into that method for people for some outreach. Those are the practical steps you give, right? Am I missing anything?
No, yeah, that's it. Yes. Okay. Then well, I guess we're almost rounding up, and I would add I would add this one more thing, right? Let your proposition be honest. Let it be honest. Promise less and do more. Think it through. Illustrate it. It's not you need to go beyond just saying your value proposition. It's something that you must find a way of demonstrating. People should see an illustration of it, not what you write in book or what you write on your page. It has to be, the question is that what people are experiencing? So be honest with it. You guys don't say things that sound nice. At least start with what you can do.
Okay, give us an example. Give us an example of a solid value proposition that a company offers, and one example of how they demonstrated it, so that someone that might be thinking, okay, my value proposition in my drink business or my value proposition in my food or fashion business is XYZ. How does that person demonstrate it? Generally, before we even discuss online space, generally.
Like, for instance, imagine that I have a restaurant, right? And I said that it doesn't matter anytime someone comes in, our food will be sizzling hot and our drinks will be very cold. That's not hard now. This thing sounds very simple, right? Or imagine that I start out and I now say that should you even order by 12 a.m., that will still be available to deliver. And I haven't considered the logistical effort required to fulfill this promise. So this would mean that if I'm going to stay true to that promise, this would mean that, look, I would rather not open today because generator went bad than to open and you come in and the food is not hot and the drink is not cold. This might mean that I can be smart and creative and make research and find out that, okay, there's something that retains coldness, right? That when I serve my customers drink, because I've seen something like that. You know, I had a Belgian friend that showed me. It was something they use in Belgium in their restaurant. When they serve you drink there, right? And it helps retain the coldness. It's not rocket science. It's a very simple thing. Now, imagine me going the extra mile to source and have that thing. Now, you might never have to read anywhere on my offline or digital space that my drink would always be cold, but it will become your experience. That I always notice, especially when you visit me and visit someone else, they now help show you my difference. As simple as it is, you would note that, I don't know, but have you noticed that their drinks is always cold? Okay, maybe that's why they always put it in that thing. And that thing that I put it in can as well be branded as well. I think that's I just want a very simple example.
And with fashion, it can be the fit of because the fit is always right.
The fit is always right. For instance, I've seen someone has delivered me a cloth before. You know, I patronized a friend that delivered me a cloth. But of course, between producing it and delivering it, I made native. You know, as I wore it, I couldn't tell what was missing. The person took initiative and said, you know what? He would help me run the logistics of taking it to laundry. I was the one that paid, but he made the effort. He contributed the effort. He took it there. Eventually, I picked it up because I was going to travel soon. By the next time I wore it on the day of the event, it looked more like it. And people were asking, where did you make it? Made it look more expensive than what I paid. So now, but imagine that from a brand point of view, that they took the initiative. They didn't do anything wrong. I'm just saying it could have been a little extra. Imagine that maybe I realized that, okay, my counterparts, my competitors will just sew and deliver. It might cost me a little extra. And I could still work it into the whole cost of production. But the point is that we deliver you brand new made-to-fit clothes that is crisp and clean. That means after production, we can even partner with a laundry house to say that, look, this is what we do. So charge us for less because you're sure that every other week, every other month, we're bringing something for you. So at least our own contribution is fixed for you.